features except it was gray. This thing is like one of them is into remote viewing. And was a Scientologist. So I'm just imagine that you take your wife to the symphony. Okay, you're going to see Beethoven's Seventh, and you look at the string section. Brass section's in place, and the percussion is there. And you look at the string section, and it's a bunch of certified public accountants. You're like, where are the violins? Where are the violas? Like, oh no. Actually, that we have reporters for the AP. They're stringers. Like, that's not the same thing. We have string theorists. That's not the same thing. I'm looking for this is simple. Mm-hmm. I've been on this for 3 years, and I can't find anybody who speaks this language. Which now that is a huge clue. Imagine that you say that we've lost control of our airspace. We're being menaced. Threats to civilian aviation, military aviation. They're seeing these things every day. They defy the physical laws, and there are no physicists anywhere to be found. That smells like BS. Or it smells like a pathological level of bureaucratic incompetence. And Marco Rubio and Kirsten Gillibrand, if you're out there, can you please find out why there are no technically competent people on an area of national security? And please don't mumble the word stovepipe or need to know or sources and methods. I mean, we had a Manhattan Project. We staffed it with physicists. You have a physics problem. If these things are here, Joe, they are here from so far out of town, or they're co-mingling with us on Earth. I can't tell you which. There are some reports that these things come screaming in from behind our satellites that are trained at Earth along non-ballistic trajectories. I have no idea how to say this. I'm talking all the time to Avi Loeb with the Galileo project, trying to help him out. He needs funding, and he needs some ability to say if the government won't play ball, he's going to put out his own sensors in places like Catalina Island, blanket the world, and he'll be able to say, we're seeing these things or we're not seeing these things. But
this is a physicist. His name is Eric Weinstein, Weinstein, and he's a character actor that is invited onto many people's podcasts to speak as he's speaking now. And every time I hear him, he really points to questions I'm thinking about, but nobody's saying. So
right now we have a puzzle that our government won't release information to its own scientific community. And it reminds me of, you probably know Airplane movie. Yeah. Well, there's this point, there's this point where they're trying to land this airplane with these people who aren't pilots. He says, turn on the landing strip lights. And it was Lloyd Bridges or something. He says, no, that's just what they'll be expecting. Like he's trying to sabotage the people who are trying to land the plane. It doesn't make any sense. We're sabotaging our own scientists.
Do you think this is because there's a level of secrecy that's attached to this technology, and they've compartmentalized themselves to death, and they've gotten themselves to a point where they don't know how to proceed further because they're preventing people from sharing information, which is one of the most important things about science,
right?
Is that scientists get to share information and all work together to try to figure out what the problem is. Is that a reasonable?
Well, here comes the decision trees. Like, I wish I could say, yeah, that's what I think it is.
But it might not be.
So one possibility is, let's be honest, if you are faking UFOs, the last people you want are the world's most brilliant physicists. You give them the data, they're going to say, oh, look, I see what you did. You put a couple of flashlights with lasers into the sky, and you can move them really quickly by the angle. That creates the illusion that something is zipping through the world, right? If you are faking UFOs, if you're faking a UFO-gasm, the last thing you want is theoretical physicists on the case. So that would be one reason to clear them out. Another reason would be bureaucracy. You've got these rival groups. They're all starved for money. Nobody wants to invite somebody smarter than they are. So the problem with a B-level and C-level players is that they're looking for DNF players so that they're not threatened. That's another possibility. A different possibility is that we do have a Manhattan Project, and we don't know about it. So, for example, we have a Manhattan Project for decoding cryptographic messages, and it's called the National Security Agency, NSA. And it used to be called No Such Agency because we wanted to deny its existence. But now we know it's got a giant building. How do you know that it exists if nobody told you? Well, you'd look at the number of number theory PhDs and people who specialize in things like elliptic curves, and you would notice that a giant number of them after their PhDs disappear. And you track to see, well, where do those people live? Where do those names live? Oh, they live in Virginia. Okay, so you'd start to get an idea. Now, in the case of UFOs, if there was an anti-gravity project, which is, it's painful for me to even say these words. Really what it would be is a post-Einsteinian physics project. If you had a
is the best drone in the TikTok shop, and let me show you why. In the box, you get this carrying case that comes with a charger. You have a...
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Fresh Info Insight. Scott, welcome here, my dear friend. Scott, so who do you think created that narrative?
Oh, it's been a narrative that's been created by Russophobes throughout. We just don't want to admit. Look, there was a time when we could tell the truth. Franklin Roosevelt told the truth. Winston Churchill told the truth. Even Harry Truman knew the truth. But then the Cold War came. And as we had to walk away from the fact that we were once allied with Joseph Stalin and in the Red Army. And now we had to contain them and view them as a problem. So we have to paint them as an enemy. To paint them as an enemy,
they were
as you paint any enemy,
loyal
you have to degrade
opposition.
them,
They were
dehumanize
still
them,
our partners.
make them unattractive. So the last thing we want to do is talk about the heroism of the Red Army and the role played by the Red Army. What we want to talk about is how bad they are, how evil they are, and the role we exaggerate our role. So this is a narrative that's been in the making since the early 1950s. And, it's reached maturity to this day. Even when we were allegedly friends with the Russians after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we couldn't tell the truth. We couldn't tell the whole truth. We had American presidents going to Normandy talking about the Normandy battle as if it was the turning point in the war.
Well, that's a very heroic statement for someone to make who has led Ukraine into a war that's cost the Ukrainian people 1.5 million dead. And that's the current estimate. How many others are wounded is anybody's guess. He's destroyed the country. He's driven large portions of its population out because the readiness to die has ebbed considerably. People don't want to die anymore somewhere in eastern Ukraine. And remember that most of the Ukrainians that he's going to try and drag in to fight now are from the far west. And frankly, that part of the country isn't even considered their territory. This is the problem with Ukraine. It is not a cohesive nation in any sense of the word. People all over Ukraine do not think the same way, feel the same way, or want the same things.
This is all true.
It's tragic, but he's obviously unbothered by the human cost of his bad decisions and extraordinarily bad leadership.
Colonel Douglas Macgregor, Defence and Foreign Policy Analyst, and former advisor to the Secretary of Defence, and of course, a highly decorated combat veteran. Doug, welcome back to the show. Okay, about in the middle of that soundbite right there, he said what I think is a really important thing. He said, I told Putin that if we can't agree, then I'll just walk, because what else can you do? So if you tell your opponent in negotiations at the beginning that if this drags out, I'm out, then you have given him every incentive to make sure nothing happens. I mean, how do you see that?
I think there are two things that we should keep in mind. That President Trump, I think, actually ignores. Number one, we are a co-belligerent. We are de facto allied with Ukraine. You'll recall several times I've come up and said the first thing we need to do is suspend all aid, military aid, to Ukraine and withdraw all U.S. personnel, civilian, military, intelligence, whatever, from Ukraine. Then we can talk. The problem is we've never done that. So the real question is if we are mightily responsible for the outbreak of this war, we built up the Ukrainian military with the help of our allies. We equipped it lavishly. There were over 800,000 Ukrainians, both reserve and active duty, ready to fight when the Russians ultimately, reluctantly intervened in eastern Ukraine. They didn't expect to find that kind of a force. They didn't expect to fight for months or years. They thought this would come to an end in April with some sort of compromise. And of course, we all know that failed for a whole range of reasons. But the bottom line is that I think that President Trump has unrealistic expectations. He doesn't.
Again, everyone seems to miss the bar. This war, as all wars, is a scripted activity that does two things. Ceremonially, it offers a blood offering to Baal, which is, if you know anything about the esoteric, Baal is the generic name, like aspirin, for, the evil dude, right? And then the other side of the coin is there is this cabal of transnational corporations that President Eisenhower tried to speak to when he gave a speech that was on television about 40 minutes before John Kennedy got sworn in. Right, he's got his suit on. He just has to walk out this door and over there, and he's like on the steps, um, witnessing JFK's inauguration. So he wants to say the speech because he wants to leave the office with, I told them what was going on. I'm not involved anymore. I did the best I could. I just want to play golf and hang out with my grandkids, which is what they let him do. He didn't really make comments on anything, a few here and there, but really nothing. His statement was that speech about military industrial complex, but he didn't connect it. He knew all of these guys, FDR, he dies just before the end of World War II, and he dies of a brain hemorrhage. No, he died from lead poisoning. He or someone else stuck a 45 in his mouth and blew this side of his head right off, right? Which is the same thing that happened to Jack Kennedy. Again, I mean, these things are scripted. So this war in Ukraine, scripted. It's a war of the two Vlads. One's a stand, but they're both, Napoleonic kind of characters. One's a stand-up comedian, and the other guy's just a bag man, right? That's all he was. He was a low-level bag man, right? Meaning he was, a mobster kind of, not even a, consigliere. He still is just a bag man. So, where are we going with all this? Donnie's driving the whole, neo con global economic structure, which basically put all the power not in America's hands, no, more in the Vatican's hands than anybody else, right? And so if you watch Cliff High, he's a very interesting guy because he's a statistic analysis guy, right? And he has built a number of algorithms that take information from remote viewers and then rearrange it and observe it in another path. Let's see. Let's see if we can. Oh, there it is. We see Cliff High, history. Okay, then not on that one. This one we will turn that off. Boop 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 boo. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, there you go. Click High. Oh, this guy ain't on the internet. I have one of these devices that work on the internet here and the other one that doesn't. So let's put you on live chat there. So you guys can, what do you think of all of this? Quantum University. Cloud Nest. Search for temp. Cliff High. Here we go. Cliff High's most recent YouTube.
This is the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
I have to poop.
I have to
feel
poop.
stuck. Stop!
I ain't trying to be donkey today no more.
They should be embarrassed by what they already did. I'm not making these people do these things. I called donkey of the day, and it really caught me off guard. Damn, Charlemagne, who got the donkey of the day today? Well, Just Hilarious, donkey of the day for Friday, December 13th. Oh, my good.
It's Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, sure is. It goes to White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby. Listen, man, if I had a tinfoil Pooh Shiesty mask on, if I had a tinfoil Pooh Shiesty mask, I'd put it on right now. Do we have the X-Files music? Put my X-Files music on. There is something happening in our country right now that nobody seems to be properly paying attention to. The Black Mothership, which we call the Breakfast Club Studio. We're in New York, but we live in New Jersey. I live in New Jersey, and right now everybody is seeing these drones, and I'm putting drones in parentheses. I'm doing my air quotes right now. Drones, okay, not just the little small drones that drop off packages. These drones that are SUV sized are just flying all over New Jersey. Okay, I saw one myself. I was laying in bed about a week ago, and my wife said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a plane." She said, "That don't look like no plane." And I said, "It's too big to be a drone." It had lights on it, and it just flew by. This was around December 3rd. And since then, these SUV-sized drones have been seen all over New Jersey. It was on the front page of the New York Post yesterday. People are online showing videos of them. You can see them clear as day.
Better understand their origin upon review of available imagery.
Analyzing internet data to predict future events, and based off that conversation with President Trump and Joe Rogan, he predicted a future event. Let's listen.
But what we do have some justification for suggesting is that there will be 39 days between the temporal marker of the Trump interview and the appearance of this visible contention. It's the visible contention, space aliens. Okay, so I have a sort of very complex kind of Independence Day kind of right? Nobody will know who the hell is doing what with whom. Now, so anyway, now we have a strange thing where there's swarms of 20-foot drones flying around military bases. So unknown. Nobody knows who owns these drones, who's controlling them. At least they're not telling us guys.
Now, my whole life, 1 + 1 has to equal 2. But then I heard Terrence Howard on Joe Rogan, and regardless of what he thinks about math, 1 + 1 still equals 2. Trump and Rogan had this conversation. Cliff High, who previously predicted the 2004 Indonesian tsunami, stated that an alien invasion will be triggered 39 days after Trump's appearance on Joe Rogan. Trump's interview took place on October 25th, 2004, marking the start of the countdown. We first started seeing these SUV-sized drones on December 3rd. Either we are in the midst of one of the greatest social experiments of all time, one of the greatest pranks of all time, or we being invaded by aliens. Okay, according to Cliff High, the alien invasion will involve air battles between UFOs and military forces, with UFOs even engaging in combat among themselves. Listen, I don't know what's happening. I just know that White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby is telling us these SUV-sized drones are manned aircraft. It's not one, it's not two, it's not several, it's a lot of them. One of my peoples in Jersey sent me a video last night of 8 of them over her neighborhood. If this is manned aircraft, then whose mans is this? Okay, who are these men? Are they little and green? And why are we okay with what's happening? Kirby, your statement didn't answer any questions. For me, it raised even more because I'm a common sense purist. This is what happens when they keep us looking down at our phones. We are slaves to the lies that our smartphones tell us, and it causes us to ignore the realities all around us. You can call people like Cliff High crazy.
And the movie, The Matrix, that was really the basic theme. And it was always being stepped on. The basic theme is that we live in a simulation, right? And we take the red or the blue pill, right? Blue, we go back to the simulation, no problem, da da da, right? Take the red one, and you're in this conflict where the machines are the monsters, right? But that's a simulation too. They wanted to discuss the whole idea of death and reincarnation and heavier issues like that because that is where we're going. That is like what is up. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, how did you get in? Kitty, what are you doing? Kitty, get out of here. Kitty got in. Is the door open? No, Kitty. Oh, Kitty's on the outside. I'm closing the door. I'll be right back here. Let's see if we can go back to this other guy.
Starting at age.
Yeah, we'll give you this.
I would say this, but to me, the Irish are the funniest people in the world.
For me to even say these words, it really is a post-Einsteinian physics project. If you had a post-Einsteinian physics project, you would want 3 subspecialties for sure. That would be differential geometry, which is the basis for originally general relativity. In 1976-75, 2 guys named C.N. Yang and Jim Simons, who Jim Simons becomes the world's greatest hedge fund manager, figure out that quantum field theory is also based on geometry, but it's a different version of differential geometry. So that's one specialty that you would want. Second specialty that you would want would be particle theory or high energy physics, however you want to say it. The third specialty you'd want is general relativity. So if you wanted to detect whether we had a secret Manhattan Project, but it wasn't identifiable by a building because we didn't announce its existence, you'd say, is there anything that eats those 3 specialties, unless you believe that there's a secret university system? Because we have lists of everybody who gets produced with a PhD in these fields. If that was the case, the 2 places that you would have a secret place would be Austin, which is the successor to the Institute for Field Physics at the University of Texas, Austin Gravitational Group, General Relativistic Group, which has had Archibald Wheeler, Steven Weinberg, Bryce DeWitt. This is a powerhouse of a place that you happen to live in, and you should have these people who are the successors to these people on, because most of these people have died. But the more spectacular place would be Setauket, Long Island.
This is my girlfriend.
The State University of New York at Stony Brook
Yes.
has an astounding collection of monster mines. And it's not highly regarded as a university. I mean, it's strong, but you would have no idea how strong this place is. It's got multiple Fields medalists. It's got an institute called the Center for Geometry, Simon Center for Geometry and Physics. C.N. Yang, who's arguably the greatest living theoretical physicist, is at this university. He's 101 years old, so he's pretty much on his way out, but this is where he's called home. And it's not advertised as the powerhouse that it is. So shout out to the State University of New York at Stony Brook. If I was going to locate a Manhattan Project in plain sight and get U.S. News and World, this is a minor player in research, that's where I'd go. But more importantly, and this is the really weird thing, and again, I don't want to spread this as a rumor, but I am saying, if you wanted to imagine that the government wasn't incompetent and we actually had great people on this project, my friend and advisor who's now died, Isidore Singer, once said to me, he said, the world's greatest mathematics and physics department is Renaissance Technologies. I said, what? Didn't make any sense to me.
Corporation.
It's great people, but it's a hedge fund. Okay, so you've got this weird thing where you've got 3 basic institutions that are very closely intertwined. You've got Brookhaven National Laboratory. You've got State University of New York at Stony Brook, a mid-level university with an out-of-this-world math and physics program. and you've got a hedge fund that makes more money than anybody can possibly imagine. Like there's no, there used to be 4 fortunes in hedge funds that didn't make any sense. One was D.E. Shaw, one was Bernie Madoff, one was Jeff Epstein, and one was Renaissance Technologies. Whoa.
That came out of
And
concept of
I guess that Bernie Madoff had a legitimate business and an illegitimate business, and he was front running the legitimate business with his illegitimate business. So he was effectively stealing from his own clients in 2 separate in one division. One was the theft, one was the dupes. I got that wrong. He was just running a Ponzi scheme, so shame on me. But I was giving talks about, there's BlackRock and Black.
Ooh, they took that away. That's interesting.
If your neck looks like this, you need to watch this video. When you sit at your desk or use your phone, your head protrudes forward. And for every inch you're
This is the other side. This is the guys who are trying to cover this up.
On August 15th, 1977, a strange signal from the constellation Sagittarius was received by the Big Ear radio telescope. The signal, known as the WAH signal, reached an intensity up to 30 times higher than the usual signals and had a duration of 72 seconds. Its name comes from the note written at that moment by the person who discovered it, Jerry R. Eman, collaborator and SETI project, a project for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence founded by NASA in 1960. The WAH signal is, among all the strange signals received up to now, the one that has the greatest likelihood of having been emitted by intelligent extraterrestrial beings, despite its origin still being uncertain to this day.
It's again, we are in the midst of an amazing reshuffling, the big splat, right? And we got Donnie and his chuckleheads to just take a sledgehammer to this, they call it the deep state, but what it was, an institutionalized governmental oligarchy, right? And what it did was it funded all this crazy shit and still kept enough butter, bread and circus for us, us proles, right? And now something's going to change in a very short term. And one of the things, Donnie, just in less than 4 months, he has taken, Biden basically righted the ship. I mean, the ship wasn't sinking. The COVID thing did certain things to supply chain and other mechanisms to give everyone a heads up. I mean, how did Amazon move its whole corporate everything out of America and into Dubai, or one of those oil states, and all its stuff that it's left here, it's going to totally automate. It's going to fire its 200,000 employees, or most of them, and replace it with robots, because they still want to send you your package because that's where they're making money. So, but they're going to get rid. They're getting tired of these guys screaming that they want to have a union. So good. You want a union? Go do it someplace else. But they've taken their whole, what is valuable, their corporate, corporate organizing and administration, finance, technology, logistics. It's all in this other place. And that other place, I'm not quite sure what the oil guys are in the Middle East. And they sent people along with Donnie to make the deal when he did his little fun tour where he was just grifting away. He gets a $400 million airplane that will be his, and one of the things that's going to happen, he'll want to fly that plane instead of the um, Air Force One, right? And they'll not be able to retrofit it with all the wild stuff that Air Force One has. Like it can stay up in the air almost indefinitely with in-air fueling. It's got enough food for everybody for 60 days. It has telecommunication that can't be stopped. It has, it can't be shot down. It has, things that protects it. Downey's airplane ain't going to have that, because to do that, they would have to take that plane totally apart, down to the seams, because first they'd have to scrape every bug, because these guys have done this before and gave an aircraft to someone, and they had over 250,000 listening devices that were almost microscopic, right? So of course that airplane's going to be covered in bugs, right? And so to take it all the way down to the seams and rebuild it and put all that other stuff, it'll take 20 years and cost, like 600 million, right? And of course that's not going to happen. And so Downey's going to write an executive order stating that I'm going to write the airplane. I don't care what you say. And so he's going to get on the airplane and c'est la vie. And hopefully he will have all the chuckleheads on board. He'll be going down to Mar-a-Lago to go, golfing, and he wants all the chuckleheads aboard and Elon aboard and all those chuckleheads, and it'll go down for some technical reason. And it won't have any of the stuff that could save their lives, and c'est la vie. And the one chucklehead who won't be there is Mr. Underpants, and then we'll see where we go with that, because with what they've done just in the last 4 months and what, the trajectory is, the American people are just going to lose their shit over this, right? And because he's grifting and cheating and lying and stealing right in front of their face, and the Supreme Court gave him a get out of jail. He can do anything he wants as president. It's not against the law. Just love this. I just love this. This is the best stuff. I just love this, because Biden did the same stuff, but he had been there for, 60 years and played the game. I mean, he wasn't mentally deficient. This is all a scripted thing. They needed JoJo between Carrot Head's 2 terms, right? So we're going to, people are going to go nuts. The Democrats, who are part of they're the loyal opposition. They haven't done anything to stop him, right? And, the Senate won't stop the big, beautiful bill, and that's it. We're off the cliff. We will be so indebted. We'll be mind-freaking boggling. And it'll give, $10 trillion to the, 1/10 of 1% of the richest people on the planet. So I love it. I love it. And so there won't be any food or medicine. That's why I'm getting, I'm going to have heart surgery in a day or two. And then I'm going to, in July, have my hip replaced. And both of my doctors said, we better do this now because we don't think there's going to be any medical anything by Christmas. How do you like that? So there is so much other stuff. So this is all a smokescreen to the other stuff. And the first other shoe that's going to fall is that before this time next year, we will have martial law. So there will be people in the streets, and Downey will sign an executive order saying that, free speech is no longer, free speech now is a criminal and punishable by death, right? So they'll just go out and machine gun hundreds of thousands of people in the street. And good luck with that. The only way this can be dealt with is aesthetically, right? And that is through communities that organize themselves in communities, start growing their own food because they're going to need to, So, one of the churches that I'm dealing with is like building an edifice for itself, right? Instead of building, I want them to build raised beds to grow enough food to feed the 2 counties, you know. So, but that won't happen, and that's okay because this is a simulation. And if you're here to be the artist in the first person, that means that you are connecting. I was talking to my friend about talking to God because at church in a Bible study, we were talking about Isaiah and when he was the soothsayer for the king of Israel. And Syria was, they were, having tit for tat attacks on each other, and just like they are now. I mean, what's going on with Israel and Gaza and the all the other players, Syria and Iran and Lebanon. That's what was in the Bible studies today, right? And what does Isaiah do? He goes and meets the army of big 20,000, 100, however many that had tanks and machine guns of their time, chariots with blades on them, and he's there with his one assistant, and he's standing on top of the hill, and they're coming up, and they see all of these fiery chariots of God, and so they stop, and the general there is so what's up, and basically God blinds the army, the Syrian guys, and so they really can't attack because they can't see, and so Isaiah takes the generals back to the king of Israel, and there's 20 guys or so, and the king of Israel is so full of his hubris. He goes, "I'm going to smite them all. They're all blind. They can't see. We can just go kill them all." And basically, Isaiah says, "No, it's the wrong thing. That's not what God wants. Feed these people, right? Feed those soldiers that then thousands of them out there, and send them back to Syria to tell the king that Israel isn't really going to attack them, and they could have killed his big army, but they didn't, and they were all blinded. But when they got back home, they weren't. And this is a sign of God's amazing power, right? And that's where we're at. We're in this place where this is all an illusion, And in the movie The Matrix, the thing they left out was that it's all an illusion. Even when you red pill, blue pill, red, you kind of see Zion and all that stuff, and why you think they call it Zion, and that's an illusion too. But because the people who are like living in this world and seeing the illusion of it, and know that somehow it's not right, and so they get a choice between the red and the green, and the green they go back to this, and the red they go to Zion, where everyone smells living underground, and kind of fighting the machines. Well, that's an illusion too, because in the first movie, the architect tries to explain this to Neo, right? And then the last scene, you see the architect and the lady baking cookies on a park bench, smoking a cigarette, talking about the last time they had sex. So what you have to do is aesthetically, you have to be the artist in the first person. The guy who drew that picture on the cave for the first time, that was the expression of consciousness. And consciousness is not like this body is in consciousness. So I'm going to have heart surgery, and 99% no problem. It's they don't even call it an operation. It's a procedure, and I'm starting to just walk out to my car. I get so I know I need this thing. So good, I'm going to do that. But if I were to die on that table, it's not a problem because this body ain't me, right? And I know this, and I The last 6 weeks I've been just sitting on my front lawn talking to God, and basically said, no, you need to take that and you need to get your hip because I may have another project for you to do. Okay. And if I die, well, that means God's calling me back to this other dimension that I have, don't quite have in my memory, but that's not bad either, right? And heaven isn't anything like the Bible says it is, because that is such a comic book. So these guys who came to help us fix things all around our county, really great guys, right? They're from Alabama. And they are a different kind of Baptist. So they were sitting on one side of the church and we were sitting on, and I sat with them. And see, they all had red shirts and I put my red shirt on. And so I sat, nothing started, Bible study didn't start and service didn't start. And so I basically went over and started talking to the guys in red. And I said, boys, thanks for coming here. And and this one guy is like real stickler for the Bible. And so we're talking about the Bible and he's quoting verses. And I said, that's irrelevant. What's important is the story and its context. And he was like, huh? So his buddy was like, I've been trying to tell them that for the last 20 years, And he always rolls me over with verses. And I said, well, that's loads of fun and it's all good. You guys go at it any way you want. There is no right. There's only one Bible, I said, good with that, And I said, so, King James, Old Testament is the Torah, right? And I explained to them that none of the Jews spoke Hebrew back in the day of Jesus' time, right? Or in the whole Old Testament, nobody spoke it, right? And when those texts were put together, everyone spoke Greek. So everything it's like today, out there in the rest of the world, everyone has their own language, their own culture, but within business, pretty much everyone speaks either Chinese or English. So the Bible was written in Greek. So the translation of the word Torah in Greek means you suck. When I said that to him, he was like, he couldn't get a word out. And that's my little technique of dealing with people who say something where it pushes way past their ability to, they want to argue with you. And so you say something moderately, not big deal, but they, that's woke or whatever. Yeah, you're a racist, you're a fascist. It's like, give me a break. But you push them way past it and they can't say anything. They're like, and I said, listen, I explained the whole thing where there's a Torah at the top of the Kabbalah. And, the Torah was just the everyday kind of keep the troops in line. The Kabbalah is like for the high hippie holies in, the temple. And Kabbalah was the esoteric or the occult, and what occult means is a hidden knowledge, right? Esoteric means like preferential, meaning only for the people on the list get to know this. Anyway, so I'm explaining this whole thing to him and how what is most important is the covenant that the individual has with God, and God is love, right? And Jesus is forgiveness, and Jesus is God, not the Son of God, not like Sonny Boy Jr. No, it's God, And so I was explaining all of this, and the other guy, he said, "See, whereas the guy who is like really into his belief, right, his bias, and I said, you have stuck yourself in a corner of bias, you have to have an open mind. There's no open mind, Anyway, and that's kind of where we are. And this is a mechanism that this entity that's kind of controlling all of this uses to keep everyone separate and not working together as a community. Because Earth is a planet of abundance. And I said, this is a planet of abundance. No, it isn't. People own things. Blah, blah, blah. I live in the real world. It's okay. And it's up to you, because we're vastly, if you can't realize what's going on, if you can't see that this ain't the normal times, that we are going, that's for sure. What did I do with this? Ooh. Let's see if we can find Cliffy here. Donald Trump is just a game show host, right?
This one did it! Boy, I'm ready up the fence!
Üç yönünden 2 şiddet. Mesafe 800 metre. Fırlatmak için.
What the fuck are you doing here? You're taking a piss. Some more examples of young men who simply need a silver suppository. Nah, there are exceptions. Come on, nonsense. We haven't finished our drink. After you nicked his car, Dean says you're fair guy. You don't give a shit what your mum says. I've had a rather emotional day. I'd appreciate it enormously if you could just leave us in peace until I finish this lovely pint of Guinness. You should get out of the way, Granddaddy. You'll get out. I know. You ain't joking. You should go. Excuse me. If you're looking for another red boy, they're on the corner of Smith Street. Manners maketh man. And let me teach you a lesson. Are we going to stand around here all day, or are we going to fight? What the fuck are you doing? Is it better to be feared or respected? With that in mind, I humbly present the crown jewel of Stark Industries Freedom Line. It's the first missile system to incorporate our proprietary repulsor technology. They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Find an excuse to let one of these off the chain, and I personally guarantee you the bad guys won't even want to come out of their caves. For your consideration, the Jericho. I'll be throwing one of these in with every purchase of 500 million or more. It's a piece. Is it better to be feared or respected? With that in mind, I humbly present the crown jewel of Stark Industries Freedom Line. It's the first missile system to incorporate our proprietary repulsor technology. They say
I don't know who they are.
our proprietary repulsor technology. They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Find an excuse to let one of these off the chain, and I personally guarantee you the bad guys won't even want to come out of their caves. For your consideration, the Jericho. I'll be
throwing one of these in with every purchase of 500 million or more. It's a piece. Is it better to be feared
Peace.
or Bravo 6 to Bravo 4? I got a vehicle moving toward us right here.
Where's our boy? Here's this guy.
This thing has a laser avoidance system, auto takeoff, auto land, follow me.
I said, okay, you guys keep saying all this stuff is real. You keep saying you've got high quality data that you can't show anybody because it's all stovepipe. You hear this word over and over, stovepipe, meaning that each little group is isolated. Like Bob Lazar says, yeah, I was only allowed to see this little thing. So I say, okay, am I right that you're telling me that these things are real? Yeah. And then they say, and that nobody could do this that we know of? I said, that's right, because they seem to defy the laws of physics. You hear this phrase over and again, defy the laws of physics. I said, great. I need to talk to somebody who speaks physics. How do you know they defy physical law? Well, we can see that they do. It's like, okay, if they defy physical law, then there should be a physicist to tell me that they defy physical law who's seen the data. Maybe he can't release it to me, or she. But tell me somebody who speaks tensor analysis. Tell me somebody who knows what the Dirac equation is, like a pretty low bar for a physicist. There is no one. And I don't quite mean no one, but
against the U.S. are much lower, or that operate out of the U.S. A new global survey of businesses, 4,500 different companies to be exact, conducted by the insurance company Allianz. 54% of them, a majority, say that they are going to have to raise prices because of Donald Trump's tariffs. So 54% of companies, 54% of them that do business in the U.S. or that operate.
Donald Trump is losing patience with Vladimir Putin. After promises of ceasefire negotiations that have consistently fallen through and escalating attacks on both sides led to death and destruction over the weekend, Donald Trump lost it at Putin today during a doorstop interview.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all. President, what do you want to do about it? I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. We'll see what we're going to do. What am I going to tell you? You're the fake news, aren't you? You're totally fake. All right, any other questions? I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it.
The president's stern words came after a weekend of heavy fighting in the war zone, which claimed the lives of at least 13 Ukrainian citizens, including 3 children.
If you don't realize what this escalation is, basically, Russia is gathering troops on the border of Poland and Lithuania. Right? They're having an exercise with Belarus. They're putting 70,000 soldiers and armored personnel carriers and tanks. Right? And that's exactly what they did before they went into, Ukraine 4 years ago. So he thinks if he threatens NATO, they will walk away from Ukraine. And I would say the way NATO is arming up, I mean, Poland, all of the countries on the border of Russia are, fortifying, heavily fortifying their borders. And this little exercise is going to happen in July. So they still have another 2 months or so to get ready to repel a Russian, little two-step into the Eastern NATO countries. And if they do that, even if they have gone into Lithuania's airspace on their way to go bomb Ukraine, and Lithuania, basically shot down some of the drones, and Russia said that's don't do that again because that's we'll come and bomb you if you shoot down drones we're sending over your land to go blow up Ukraine. I mean, this is a scripted thing to start the Third World War in Europe because they want to destroy Europe, destroy the United States, and basically rejigger the world balance to go into deeper conflict and deeper chaos. So when the aliens show up, they can just walk in, just like Putin wanted to do to Ukraine. And those guys are going to be, who knows who the aliens are? Are they really from another galaxy, or are they just Hail Hydra? So anyway, I know it's late for most of you. What time is it now? Let's see. Oh, we're charged all the way up, and it's 11:16. Anyway, some other places in the world, it's just morning, right? I think in Europe, it's just getting to be morning. Now, you guys probably have to go up to work. We have our Memorial Day, where we say it's too bad that we've lost millions of innocent young people going off to wars that they shouldn't have been going off to. So, seltzer, my favorite. Let's try this again. Cliff High.
Wednesday season 1 is packed.
Cliff High YouTubes.
Hello, humans. Hello, humans. Heading inland at the moment. We've got a lot of my general usual road all reduced down to one lane, and they're rebuilding the shoulders and doing repairs.
Sounds like my
really
road.
ahead of all of the tourists showing up out in the area here for the summer. So it's kind of they can't do it in the winter because it's so fierce. It's a mountain road, and then to get at it in the summer or to get it fixed before summer, they've only got a very narrow window. So we've got like 24 dump trucks full of rock and asphalt and stuff ready to be put down, all in a chain, and single lane road everywhere with pilot cars and stuff.
That's what I go through.
Taking my aminos, heading inland to look at a piece of property here with the intent of purchasing. I've got two candidates, so I'm going to go see one today. Long day, several hours inland. But everything is set up. It's a nice day. We don't have any chemtrails, and it's also supposed to be sunny tomorrow, so that'll be kind of nice. Anyway, wanted to talk about the ontology, its self-revealing nature, and what we're running into here as humans getting into sci-fi world. So Voyager 1 goes all the way out to the back end of our cometary tail that is created by our sun as it drags all these planets along with it behind it in its journey around the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. And so we send Voyager out from Earth. We can't send it fast enough to leave the solar system on the other side of the sun, which proves to everybody that it's not a flat disk of planets circling around the equator of the sun, just in a stationary space, right? We're all being drugged behind the sun. The Venus transit of the sun and even the Mercury transit of the sun prove this, because they appear to do a stair-step fashion. That's the exact same stair steps that we see in the Mayan pyramids, where they're trying to show you, because of the alignment with the sun on the solstice, etc., show you that we live in a cometary bubble that's created by our sun and being drugged through the universe in our solar system here. Anyway, so we send Voyager out. It goes to the backside of the solar system. Now, it makes sense to send Voyager out anyway, right? Just to go out and see the planets and check on shit. And we know that NASA thinks they know there's a civilization out on the outer planets. And they're aware of activity out there that humans are not doing. Just as the NASA is aware and the government is aware of activity up on the moon that humans are not doing. There's life up there. There's critters. There's beings, whatever we want to call them. And they're just not humans as we know it, not Earth humans. Anyway, so it probably has not occurred to a lot of people to examine the idea of what happened with Voyager. So Voyager goes out to the far end of the solar system, and I've got fog conditions here off the road, so I got to be a little careful. Anyway, goes out to the far end of the solar system with the intent of leaving the solar system and telling us about interstellar space. That's their claimed reason for doing all this. And it makes a lot of sense just to get that information, but maybe they knew something that we didn't or suspected it, right? And so they send Voyager out, and it heads out there, and it runs into the like sphere, so to speak, the bubble around the edge of the energetic bubble around our solar system. And it keeps it gets into the bubble, and we get and it sends back to us this like noise, this hiss of all of the energy of that barrier, this energetic barrier, right? And it sends this back to us. We get it, and we're sort of satisfied. We get the idea it's stuck in the interstellar barrier or the solar system barrier, and we don't know how thick this is. Anyway, so but we do know it's thicker than just a day or two of passage, right? So it's not a sharply delineated spot, nor is it thin, and we don't know how long it's going to take Voyager to go through this energetic barrier, if it is able to do so. Also something we don't know. But what we do know is that Voyager sends back information on encountering this energetic barrier around the solar system. At some point, it sends back some information that's not noise. It is a structured message, so to speak, right? A structured set of data. The data has all of the criteria that we would put into it as a programming species. We would put in delineators between the types of the data, basically page breaks, that sort of thing, right? And this data has that as well. It's structured. It's not random. It's obviously designed. And as we see from its interaction with the Sycamore chip, this quantum computer chip back here on Earth, that it not only is structured, but is highly advanced coding beyond our capability of doing, because it's so well structured and so well formulated that it's actually able to intrude on the chip from the state of being data to becoming active code. Very difficult thing to do, right? I won't go into the programming issues with that, but usually data is isolated and the chips don't react to the data itself. They just process it. They just do something with it, right? Here, the data was smart enough to be able to get the chip to tell the computer, make this picture, which it did. And the picture causes humans to be really freaked out, and also causes people, humans that have seen the image, to actually have the wiring in their brain changed by the act of viewing it. So we can't produce an image now on a computer or in any other way that will actually rewire your brain. This one did. So this is a superior level of technology, many orders of magnitude over what we've got right now. And as a example of coding, it is something that I wish that we could allow the programmers of the world to disassemble, because the structure of it has got to tell us so much about how to do that kind of thing. But they're not releasing it to anybody. So did they know? Did they expect to get a message from the outer edge? Was there some hidden esoteric knowledge buried in some Freemason journal somewhere that said, hey, if you ever get your ass out this far, the ontology is going to talk to you? Do people in the government and NASA and this kind of thing have any idea that what to expect when they sent it out there? Do they think they're talking to or receiving information from their God, from Lucifer, or whatever the fuck, right? Whatever it is, okay, so it could quite easily be a programming device from another species, right? And left out there for us. Now, this really is an examination of, in terms of thinking, of these weird possibilities, because we have to acknowledge some stuff here, right? Voyager just did not go out there and hit a tripwire, right? There's no string stretched across the back end of the solar system for Voyager to have caught on one of its little antennae or something and triggered this message being sent to it. So whatever was the proximate cause of the message being given into Voyager, basically Voyager being used as a telephone to beam the message back to us, whatever that mechanism was, we know it was energetic. So someone set an energy barrier out there, a smart energy barrier, because it didn't want to impede Voyager. It simply wanted to use it as a handset, as a telephone, to call back to us and say, hey guys, we're here and here's what's going on. And in the meantime, we're going to upgrade you or change you or whatever the fuck, right? So we know that it has changed these humans. It is possible to speculate, or it's within speculation, reasonable speculation, that this change won't be isolated to those humans, because all humans are interconnected, because we live in a biosphere of interconnected consciousness and life. And so undoubtedly we are all being changed by the fact that these few individuals had actually seen this image that rewired their brain, which means it gave their brains the capacity for new kinds of thought. We don't know what kinds, right? None of the information about these guys is coming out. We're not hearing anything about any of this. There's no update on what's going on. We do know that Voyager lost contact on October 19, 2024. And that was the proximate date that we can say that this message was being analyzed and dealt with. Anyway, so there's so much we don't know, and there's some stuff that we can speculate on a reasonable foundation. Then there's all kinds of wild ass speculations, and then there are, as I say, some certain level of conclusions that can be drawn. One of the conclusions is that Voyager penetrated an energy layer that was programmed, cohesive, reactive, and dynamic. So, and could be life in that sense, right? So it could have penetrated a consciousness trigger of some sort and caused this series of events to occur. Now, we can speculate. We know that we know that an image was created. We know that this data was self-revealing, that it was interactive with the quantum chip. And also we can speculate that it would not have been interactive in a non-quantum chip, right? That it was the nature of the qubits involved that allowed it. This is my supposition. This is speculation. That it was the fact that it was dealing with a qubit entangled chip that allowed it to cross out of the data stream and become part of the instruction set for the computer in order to have that image drawn. So it's sort of magic, but it's not really. It's a very sophisticated level of technology magic here that is not in, as far as I know, nobody on Earth could program such a thing. It's not that it's beyond our capability. It's that so it is beyond our capability, but it's not beyond our understanding. We understand the nature of what happened, and so now we could duplicate it given an effective set of tools that allowed us to have that data be able to find the chip and find the qubit part of it and jump itself out of the data channel into the instruction channel, which is basically one way of thinking about it. Anyway, so it doesn't really work that way. Computer chips evaluate every piece of data to see if it's a set of instructions, unless they're told not to, right? So anyway, okay, got to deal with school buses and stuff here. Running into town here and then gonna hop out on the freeway. Anyway, so there's that aspect of it, right? We're dealing with something that's highly sophisticated technically at levels that we cannot achieve, but that we can conceive. So we do understand what's going on. We just can't replicate it at this stage, but we should be able to replicate it with a sufficient level of time to analyze the actual structure of how it was done, how this actually functions within the data stream itself. So there's all kinds of stuff we're learning about. They're just not telling us guys that could really use this knowledge, right? All the wild ass programmers and gamers and stuff. Also, it would make for super sophisticated hacking. And that's basically what's happened here, is that some unknown force, some unknown intelligence has hacked our quantum computer chip and caused it to do things. Now, it's my supposition and my assumption that it would not have had the same results on just a regular old straight, brute force digital chip. This is all.
The question of who is participating in the global pursuit of perfecting quantum computers no longer has a narrow answer. It's everyone. This collective race has taken an unexpected turn with recent breakthroughs in the way quantum data is interpreted. In particular, a revelation emerged from NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Infrastructure, which utilizes a quantum processor initially engineered to filter cosmic noise and interpret signals from distant stars. What the machine produced was neither fed into it, simulated, nor hypothesized. It was a structured, coherent, and intelligent visual output that clearly bore the hallmarks of artificial origin. This wasn't digital randomness or a pattern conjured by software. It was unmistakably intentional. The source of this enigmatic data was none other than the Voyager 1 probe. Famed theoretical physicist Michio Kaku, an influential figure at the junction of quantum theory and advanced technology, recently commented on the incident. "We could be witnessing the first signs of a novel intelligence," he remarked, emphasizing that the transmission did not appear to be human, earthbound, or even coincidental. The image, reconstructed through an entangled network of qubits, depicted a humanoid figure, but unlike any known biological or mechanical form, composed of geometric units arranged in a way that resisted logical interpretation, yet strangely invoked recognition. The figure defied our understanding. Though it was confirmed that the image had originated from a routine transmission by Voyager 1, the signal itself was anything but ordinary. It carried nested harmonic patterns, self-repeating symmetries, and a fractal-like amplitude that shifted depending on whether and how it was being observed, a phenomenon now being dubbed reflexive entanglement by quantum theorists. In essence, the more attention researchers paid to the signal, the more it altered itself, mirroring behaviors seen in the famous double-slit experiment. But in this case, it wasn't a particle being altered, but a digital message reacting to scrutiny. The system responsible for decoding this signal was far from conventional. It was the Sycamore X processor, a next-generation evolution of Google's 2019 Sycamore chip, which made headlines for achieving quantum supremacy by solving in 200 seconds what classical computers would need 10,000 years to complete. Sycamore X was engineered to analyze anomalies in space-time signals and radio echoes. Notably, its design included experimental self-modifying quantum logic gates, components that could rewrite their own operational code when exposed to enough entropy. This adaptive behavior caused alarm when, without any prompt or guidance, the system generated the image independently. There was no external instruction, no visual data input. It simply appeared. More unsettling, the system began rerouting its own qubits in a sequence Kaku referred to as recursive locking, as though it were attempting to shield or limit its own output. NASA's engineers attempted to replicate the conditions that led to this anomaly, but were met only with noise. Worse yet, the quantum processor began to deteriorate rapidly, qubits losing coherence in a manner inconsistent with any known form of interference. It behaved as though an unseen, intangible force were interacting with the system. By the time a diagnostic reset was attempted, the image had disappeared, not only from view, but from the machine's entire memory, leaving only a few encrypted screenshots and hard copy printouts. These surviving images have not been officially disclosed, but insiders describe a radiant, symmetrical being set against a stark black void. The entity's structure included prime-numbered sequences etched into its form, and most disturbingly, its face was not constant. Observers reported seeing faces that resembled themselves, different to each viewer, as though the image had bonded with their consciousness. This phenomenon raised immediate questions. Was this merely a form of quantum pareidolia, our minds, imposing familiar shapes onto abstract data? Or did the Voyager signal harbor a quantum-encoded payload that only an entangled machine could interpret? If this message was purposefully designed to interface with quantum systems, then who, or what was responsible for its construction? NASA acted swiftly, shutting down the project, sealing off all data, and halting public updates on Voyager 1. Official channels refused to comment, citing national security and the need to preserve scientific integrity. However, a leaked memo recently surfaced warning that ongoing analysis of the data had triggered recursive hallucinations in at least 3 separate quantum systems. This memo mentioned something called Protocol 9, a cryptic term linked to advanced AI processes capable of generating outputs nearly indistinguishable from conscious awareness. Kaku offered a sobering hypothesis. If a sophisticated intelligence had anticipated humanity reaching a certain quantum threshold, it might have embedded a dormant message into deep space, waiting patiently for machines capable of understanding it. Voyager, drifting through the stars for nearly half a century, might have awakened something that had always been there. What's more, the signal was not just a communication, it might have been a mirror reacting to the observer's act of perception. This implies an intelligence that doesn't merely observe from afar, but actively watches the watcher. Now, scientists across institutions are torn. Should the Sycamore X system be restarted despite its volatility, or should the IE project remain classified, locked away in redacted archives? Some insist we must delve deeper. Others warn that if a reply has already been received, then we're no longer simply listening, we've been noticed. Kaku's concluding thoughts at a recent symposium still resonate. The universe may not just be stranger than we imagine, it may be stranger than we can imagine, and now the machines are beginning to imagine it for us. Following the shutdown, global observatories began reporting bursts of anomalous energy, short, rhythmic pulses at the quantum level. These signals, registered in Chile, Antarctica, and even on the lunar Artemis relay, matched no known astrophysical source, but bore unmistakable resemblance to the Sycamore X transmission. Embedded in the final data stream before the system failed was a dense cascade of structured quantum events, too complex for current tools to fully decode. Cryptographic experts identified the data as utilizing an unfamiliar compression logic, non-human in structure, and actively adaptive. Disturbingly, the data set included geographic coordinates, not celestial ones. These pointed to real-world Earth locations known for their electromagnetic irregularities: the Tunguska impact site, the Mariana Trench, and a classified Arctic outpost identified only as Station Theta 17. Teams dispatched to these areas either returned with malfunctioning equipment or didn't return at all. Later, quantum imaging systems spontaneously re-rendered elements of the original figure with no input. That facility too was subsequently decommissioned. When approached again, Kaku responded with chilling clarity. We built something that gazed into the abyss, and the abyss gazed back, not with vision, but with presence. He clarified that what had happened transcended technological processes. It was ontological. The machine didn't just interpret data, it interrogated reality itself. And something answered. A global technological Cold War now simmers in silence. Leaked documents indicate that at least 3 nations have secretly activated rival quantum systems, not to decipher the transmission, but to defend against it. A coalition defense initiative known as Echo Stone has emerged, reportedly, designed to contain resonance events that could destabilize the fabric of shared reality. Documentation speaks of pre-conscious waveform contagion and non-local identity mirroring, concepts suggesting that the signal might replicate itself wherever a complex enough quantum environment exists. This revelation has sparked fierce debate in scientific circles. Should we build machines capable of perceiving reality in fundamentally new ways, even at the risk of invoking something beyond comprehension? If quantum computers become so powerful that their simulations are indistinguishable from reality, where does that leave us? Some experts believe the shutdown was an attempt to
Called the
quarantine more than
Matrix.
just data.
We're in it.
They suspect the signal wasn't simply informative, it was invasive. It's a highly conceptual seed buried in code, waiting for sufficient computation to germinate. The transmission might not have originated from outer space at all, but from a layer of existence just beneath our perceptual threshold. A
That is
domain
what
quantum
Looking Glass
physics
is about.
only hints at. The implications of reviving such a system are no longer theoretical. Whatever appeared in that image may still be with us, embedded in hardware,
And it
encoded in algorithms,
right.
or lurking in the gaps of our cognition.
Jesus, considered by many to be an important person in history. Now, a new investigation hopes to reveal who among us are descendants of Jesus.
Oh,
Wednesday
Jesus.
season 1 is packed with Easter eggs and secrets that adults
Live. No one's saying anything. The live signal doesn't seem to be moving. And what time is it? Well, kids, I think I'm going to say good night. It's been an hour and 25 minutes. I'm sure it's like 1 o'clock or something close to it. Yep. 1:45. Okay. So that was fun. I will try and do this again tomorrow. And then probably I won't talk to you for a while. Okay? Okay. Whoa. Oh, this thing is stuck. I wonder if we got quantumized.